My sister made us drink cemetery water for New Year's. Last New Year's turned into an absolute nightmare when my sister returned from her 6-month spiritual retreat in the mountains, convinced that our entire family was cursed with bad karma. According to her new guru, the only way to cleanse our ancestral energy was through a series of increasingly bizarre rituals that had to be completed before midnight on New Year's Eve. What followed was a descent into madness that would forever change our family dynamics and leave permanent scorch marks on both our house and our collective psyche. Sarah had always been the eccentric one in our family. While I chose the conventional path of accounting and my brother Mike went into engineering, Sarah bounced between careers like a pinball. Corporate lawyer, interpretive dance instructor, artisanal cheesemaker, and briefly, a professional dog psychic. But this time she'd gone completely off the deep end. She arrived at our parents' house 3 days before New Year's in what can only be described as a spiritual hurricane. Her normally sleek business attire had been replaced by flowing orange robes that made her look like a traffic cone caught in a windstorm. Her head was freshly shaved, revealing a collection of temporary Sanskrit tattoos that she claimed spelled out ancient wisdom. We later discovered they actually translated to spicy noodle soup. She was carrying a large trunk that seemed to hum ominously, full of what she called purification materials. The first sign of trouble came when she demanded we convert the garage into a spiritual cleansing chamber. This involved covering every surface with white sheets, setting up dozens of mirrors at energetically significant angles, and creating an elaborate altar featuring crystals, feathers, and what appeared to be a stuffed iguana wearing a tiny crown. The iguana, she explained, was a spirit guide she'd acquired from a shaman in a gas station parking lot. Then came the dreaded karmic cleansing smoothies. Every 4 hours, like clockwork, Sarah would summon us to the kitchen to consume her latest concoction. The revolting mixtures contained ingredients she'd sourced from various holy sites, river mud from some sacred stream, bark from an ancient tree, and something she called blessed animal emissions that I didn't dare ask about. The smell alone was enough to make our elderly cat, Professor Whiskers, leave home for 3 days. He took one sniff of the first batch and walked straight out the doggy door, suitcase in paw. I'm still not sure where he got the suitcase. Our parents, still carrying guilt from various parental mishaps over the years, missing her college graduation, accidentally selling her childhood stamp collection at a garage sale. That time they forgot her at a gas station during our family road trip to Florida, reluctantly went along with her demands. Mom started wearing the crystal necklaces Sarah distributed, despite them being heavy enough to give her neck pain. Dad tried to reason with Sarah when she insisted on burying our family photos in the backyard at specific compass points, but she just burst into tears and started chanting about negative energies and generational curses. The photo burial was particularly traumatic. Sarah had created an elaborate map marking the energy vortexes in our backyard where the photos needed to be placed. Unfortunately, she'd failed to account for the underground sprinkler system. When Dad tried pointing this out, she declared the sprinklers were actually ancient water spirits that had chosen our yard as their portal to our dimension. We ended up with several burst pipes and a flooded basement full of floating family memories. Things escalated quickly after that. Sarah covered every mirror in the house with red cloth, claiming they were portals for evil spirits. She started performing elaborate ceremonies at dawn and dusk, which involved all of us walking backwards around the house while balancing bowls of burning herbs on our heads. These cleansing circumambulations, as she called them, led to several minor disasters. Mike got second-degree burns when he sneezed during one of these rituals, sending his burning herb bowl flying onto his shirt. Dad nearly broke his hip when he tripped over one of the many crystals Sarah had scattered around the property to amplify the spiritual energy. The neighbours started showing concerning levels of interest in our family's sudden departure from normalcy. Sarah's 3 a.m. karma clearing chants, delivered through a megaphone to amplify the spiritual vibrations, led to several noise complaints and one threat of an exorcism from the local parish priest. She'd positioned crystals all around the property in what she called a sacred geometry pattern, but which looked suspiciously like a giant middle finger when viewed from above, something we discovered when old Mrs. Johnson next door sent us a photo taken by her grandson's drone. My teenage daughters, Emma and Sophia, were initially amused by their aunt's antics. They started a TikTok account dedicated to documenting Aunt Sarah's spiritual breakdown, which gained an unexpected following. Their amusement turned to horror when Sarah announced they needed to shave their heads too. Apparently, hair was trapping negative energy and preventing our karmic cleanse from taking full effect. That led to a 2-hour standoff in the bathroom, with both girls barricaded inside, while Sarah chanted purification mantras through the door and tried to slide an electric razor underneath. The house itself began to take on an otherworldly appearance. Every available surface was covered in either crystals, burning incense, or mysterious powders arranged in geometric patterns. Sarah had replaced all our light bulbs with special aura-enhancing bulbs that cast everything in a sickly purple glow. The living room furniture had been rearranged according to ancient feng shui principles, which mainly seemed to involve turning everything upside down and creating impossible-to-navigate pathways. Our family meals became exercises in spiritual endurance. Sarah insisted on blessing each bite of food with a specific chant, which meant dinner could last for hours. She replaced all our regular plates with energetically aligned copper dishes that gave everything a metallic taste and turned all our foods slightly green. The kitchen now housed an ever-growing collection of mysterious jars containing what she called essence of spiritual awakening, but which looked suspiciously like pond water. The situation with Professor Whiskers took an unexpected turn when he finally returned home after his 3-day exodus. The cat came back wearing a small meditation shawl and carrying prayer beads. According to Mrs. Johnson, he'd spent his time away attending her grandson's Buddhist study group. Sarah declared this a sign of the universe's approval of her methods, though I suspect it had more to do with Mrs. Johnson's premium cat treats than any spiritual awakening. My brother Mike's attempts to apply logical reasoning to Sarah's practices led to some of the most absurd arguments I've ever witnessed. As an engineer, he couldn't help but point out the scientific impossibilities in her rituals. This culminated in a 3-hour debate about whether moonlight could actually be stored in mason jars. Sarah had filled our entire pantry with what she claimed was captured lunar essence. Their argument ended only when one of the jars mysteriously exploded, covering Mike in what was definitely regular water with glitter in it. The local New Age shop became Sarah's second home. The owner, a woman named Starshine, formerly Susan from accounting, was more than happy to supply my sister with an endless array of spiritual paraphernalia. A house slowly filled with singing bowls, prayer flags, and something called a karma calculator, which looked suspiciously like a regular calculator with crystals glued to it. The shop's delivery guy became such a regular presence that Mom started setting a place for him at dinner. My parents' attempts to maintain some semblance of normalcy grew increasingly desperate. Dad continued to go to his weekly bowling league, though now he had to wear a protective crystal necklace and perform a cleansing ritual on his bowling ball. Mom's bridge club meetings at our house became complicated affairs, with Sarah insisting on sage smudging all the cards and replacing the regular snacks with karma-friendly alternative that tasted like sweetened cardboard. The situation reached its peak on New Year's Eve. Sarah had planned the ultimate cleansing ritual, which required all of us to strip down to our underwear, paint ourselves with a mixture of turmeric and cow dung. She'd specially sourced it from an enlightened cow in Nepal, and perform a series of complex yoga poses while reciting Sanskrit verses we couldn't pronounce. The house looked like a cross between a New Age shop explosion and a crime scene, with melted candles covering every surface and mysterious powders creating patterns on the floors. Mom finally drew the line when Sarah tried to burn all our shoes in the living room fireplace, claiming that footwear was grounding our spirits too firmly in the material plane. The resulting argument sent Sarah into a spiritual crisis. She locked herself in the pantry, surrounding herself with her crystals, and began speaking in what she claimed was an ancient divine language, but sounded suspiciously like Pig Latin mixed with quotes from Star Wars. The intervention required multiple stages of escalation. First came the fire department, responding to the smoke from Sarah's excessive incense burning and shoe burning attempt. The firefighters, already familiar with our address from previous karma cleansing-related incidents, arrived wearing gas masks and carrying sage-specific fire extinguishers. Their chief had apparently done some research on spiritual ceremonies after their third visit that week. Then came the FaceTime call with Sarah's guru, who turned out to be a former insurance salesman named Bob, living in his mother's basement in New Jersey. Bob, wearing what appeared to be a bedsheet toga and sporting a fake beard, tried to talk Sarah through her crisis. However, his credibility suffered a severe blow when his mother interrupted the call to ask if he wanted his pizza rolls regular or extra crispy. The breaking point came when we discovered Sarah had replaced all the water in the house with what she called moon-blessed dew collected from a cemetery at midnight. Dad, who'd accidentally brushed his teeth with it, became convinced he could now communicate with his deceased goldfish. He spent an hour by the empty fish tank having what he claimed was a deep philosophical discussion about the meaning of life with his long-gone pet, Herbert. As midnight approached, our house had become unrecognizable. The walls were covered in tapestries featuring what Sarah claimed were ancient spiritual symbols, but looked more like doodles from a bored teenager's notebook. The air was thick with incense smoke and the lingering aroma of burning shoes. Professor Whiskers had established his own meditation circle in the corner, complete with tiny crystal arrangements and what appeared to be a cat-sized yoga mat. The real twist came during the final moments of the year. During another crisis intervention video call, Bob the Guru accidentally revealed that he'd been making everything up to impress Sarah. His entire spiritual philosophy was cobbled together from various wellness Instagram accounts and a parody spirituality website he'd found while searching for insurance fraud guidelines. The ancient Sanskrit texts he'd been quoting were actually menu items from his local Indian restaurant run through Google Translate. Sarah's reaction to this revelation was not what any of us expected. Instead of breaking down, she started laughing, really laughing, the kind of deep, uncontrollable laughter that's either healing or slightly maniacal. Soon, we were all laughing, covered in turmeric and cow dung, surrounded by smoking herbs and crystals, watching our shoes smoulder in the fireplace, while Professor Whiskers led his own meditation session in the corner. As the New Year's countdown began on TV, which Sarah had insisted on covering with blessed cheesecloth to filter out negative frequencies, she finally admitted the truth. The real reason behind all this was her recent divorce and job loss. Rather than face her problems, she'd thrown herself into the first alternative lifestyle that promised answers. The guru, the rituals, the cleansing, it was all a way to avoid dealing with her real issues. The aftermath of Sarah's karmic cleansing adventure took months to fully address. The house required significant renovation. Apparently, burning sacred herbs for weeks on end can really damage the paint and carpeting. We're still finding buried photos in the backyard, and Mom swears some of the crystal energy patterns left permanent marks on her hardwood floors. The cat continues to hold daily meditation sessions, though his following has dwindled to a couple of neighborhood squirrels. The plumbing had to be completely replaced after the moon-blessed cemetery water corroded the pipes. The local hardware store now keeps extra inventory just for us, and the plumber's kids will probably be able to go to college thanks to the fees from our multiple emergency calls. The garage still occasionally emits a mysterious humming sound, and nobody wants to investigate what's behind the new wall panel that appeared during one of Sarah's more intense ritual sessions. Sarah stayed with our parents for a few months after that, getting actual therapy instead of spiritual cleansing. She still keeps one or two crystals around, the non-humming kind, but she's back in business suits and has promised never to go near blessed animal emissions again. Though she did convince Mom to join a gentle yoga class, minus the backwards walking and burning herbs. The neighbours have mostly forgiven us, though property values on our street took a temporary dip during the height of the karma cleansing activities. Mrs. Johnson still tells the story at her garden club meetings, and her grandson's drone footage of our crystal middle finger became a minor viral sensation. The local New Age shop offered Sarah a lifetime discount, which she politely declined. Professor Whiskers has maintained some of his spiritual practices, though he's scaled back the formal ceremonies. He still sits in meditation pose every morning, but we suspect it's more about sunbathing than enlightenment. The other neighborhood cats seem to regard him with a mixture of awe and confusion, and he's developed a small following among the local strays. Now, as another new year approaches, we can laugh about the whole experience. The neighbors still cross the street when they see Sarah coming, and no one will let her near their shoes. But our family somehow emerged stronger from the whole ordeal. We learned that sometimes the craziest situations can bring people together, even if it involves questionable smoothies and cemetery dew. Dad did have to replace all the plumbing after the moon-blessed cemetery water corroded the pipes, and we never did get the smell of burning herbs out of the curtains. But every New Year's Eve we raise a glass of normal beverages, not karmic cleansing smoothies, and thank whatever non-cursed stars are out there that we survived Sarah's spiritual awakening. The family photos have all been retrieved from their backyard burial spots, though some now sport interesting water damage that Sarah insists adds spiritual character to the images. Mom's bridge club still meets at our house, but they bring their own drinks and snacks now, and everyone politely declines when Sarah offers to bless their cards. Though I have to admit that Kat does seem more enlightened now, and sometimes on very quiet nights we can still hear a faint chanting coming from the garage, accompanied by the gentle purring of a spiritually awakened feline and the distant humming of crystals that refuse to be silenced.